Hey guys, welcome to the Unleash podcast brought to you by Hidden Gen, where we talk about how to unleash your hidden potential. I'm your host, Yuri Diogenes, and we have a great episode for you today featuring Yussef Luna. Yussef, thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you for having me on the show today.
Absolutely. So before we jump into today's topic, we would like to invite you to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. You can always find these episodes also on the Hidden Gene website, hiddengene.net. And if you live in the area and you have not been at Hidden Gene yet, make sure to grab a trial pass on our website, hiddengene.net. All right, Yusuf, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm great today. It's a nice recovery day. How
Ah,
about you today?
pretty good. It was not my recovery day. Today was actually leg day, so I'm pretty beat up. All right, let's start talking about Olympic weightlifting. How you got into this?
I started out in high school. They made us do like cleans, but they didn't really teach us too well on technique.
Hmm.
So it was kind of like pull the bar, get under it. However strong you are is however much weight you're going to move. And then graduating high school, I didn't want to get fat, so I joined CrossFit. And in CrossFit, they show you a little bit of it, a little more technique into it. But actual Olympic weightlifting, I started in law school my second year when I came back. I met a coach who was just really good at what he did, and he said you should try it out, not just for a CrossFit reason, but just it's a really good skill and something to develop just your discipline as well.
Now, it's funny because you moved from CrossFit to Olympic, formal Olympic training with a coach and everything. You probably saw a lot of mistakes that CrossFitters usually do on Olympic lift, right? Because usually, if you go by the book on the Olympic lift, you will see some of the mistakes that is done, right?
Yeah, it's just most of it, like in CrossFit, they're having like 10 to 20 reps, right, of either snatch or a clean. So when you're moving that fast and have that many reps, the quality is not going to be super good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people just assume that having that, as long as it moves, it's okay, which it does make sense. But from a biomechanics standpoint, it doesn't really make much sense. So it just depends on your training.
Yeah, from the biomechanics standpoint, can you elaborate more on that, for example, for people that are not fully aware? I think it's very important to clarify that.
So just from a biomechanics standpoint, is your body's moving efficiently or it's not right, especially with the barbell, because your arms are guiding the barbell and you're using your legs, whether it's a clean or a snatch. And in CrossFit, there's a lot more arm movement. There's a lot more jerking body movement. It's because you're tired, right? Because you're running, you're doing box jumps, you're doing all these other things. And like the Olympic lifts, it's part of the workout. When you're doing Olympic weightlifting in that training, you're doing single reps or doubles, maybe triples, but for the most part, it's take your breath, calculate, and then do it.
Yeah.
Compared to CrossFit, where it's three, two, one, go. And that type of training really does change your biomechanics just because there's this inner piece you have to have when you're having that
And a
training.
lot of people get hurt because of that,
Hmm.
right? Because I've seen some really bad deadlift, for example, where the
Yeah.
back was fully curved. I mean, it was painful just to watch.
It's hard for me, and I tell people at the gym like it hurts my soul when I see bad form. But at the end of the day, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink it. So I've learned to just kind of keep my mouth quiet unless they ask me.
Yeah, I believe because as I said, I interviewed some other people that migrated from CrossFit to Olympic lifting, and they were like, "Oh my God, I was making so many mistakes."
Hmm.
And today, you actually coach people on Olympic lifting, or not really just that?
Yeah, I do Olympic lifting, cross training, personal training, sports performance. Most of them I incorporate Olympic lifts in some form or another, whether it's with a barbell, a kettlebell, or just with a landmine, right? Just because all those lifts don't have to be necessarily with a barbell. You could start them out just kind of introducing them with the kettlebell, saying, this is how your body needs to move. This is how we need to get mobility. This is how we need to get proper range of motion. These are all the little things that are going to help you when you actually do want to do the lift or just even for your own healthy self.
Yeah, mobility is also something that is very important, right? Because, for example, in my case, I have uh, really problems to do front squats because of my wrist. It's just hard to put the wrist in the opposite way on the bar. So for people that has really lack of mobility, do you recommend to start a mobility program first, or you can start lifting and start making some adjustments?
It really depends on the type of training that you're doing, right? If you're a bodybuilder and most of your training is kind of isometric movements, right, where it's here, there, you're already limiting your range of motion. So it mostly just be working like on bands and PVC pipes, making sure you can open up, hold a proper front rack or overhead position. But just kind of throwing it in there, it really depends on how athletic they are, what background they have, and just other types of fitness. So it really just depends on the type of person, how willing they are to, especially because Olympic weightlifting is about 90% mental and 10% physical. Like you have to want to move that weight. You can't just casually come up to it.
And a lot of people that go to weightlifting, they want to lift heavy. But I noticed that when you're doing Olympic training, you many times you start just with the bar, right? Just to make sure that you
Mhm.
are getting the movement right. And some people don't like to train just with the bar, right? How do you deal with people that that have big ego and they want to lift heavy? I mean, how do you teach them that there is time for everything?
It's mostly like our Olympic lifting. It's either moving efficiently or not, as I said, right? So if it's moving like really bad at 60, 75%, it's not magically going to get better when you're trying to max out, right? We have this saying like the heavier the weight gets, the better your technique is supposed to get. And if we're not even at that point when you're trying to push heavy weight, then you're really just going to hurt yourself at that point. You have to understand why the barbell moves at this positioning, why you have to stay tied, and kind of see the whole lift where you're visualizing it before you go up to it, not just like I'm going to pull this weight up and it moved if it moved if it didn't.
Hmm.
Does that make
Yeah, it
sense?
does. It does absolutely. Yeah. Do you have like a beginners program for people that never really did and they start? Usually, how many months it takes for you to start really be moving? Like, for example, two plates of 45 pounds for clean jerk and things like that.
135 for men if they're for clean and jerks, usually pretty easy for them. Maybe 95. Women, it really depends whether they're working out or not. But it really does depend whether they're doing some other type of fitness before, or usually people who were like dancers, ballerinas, people who have done other, I guess, athletics or type of training that they have to understand their body, like kinesthetic awareness, right? The reaction from the brain to the rest of the body. Those are the people who are going to do very good at it. But someone who's never really done that type of training and is maybe just bench, deadlift, and squatted, it's going to be a hit or miss most of the time.
Hmm. And are you actively competing in Olympic weightlifting, or are you more on the coach side?
I actually just did nationals or my last under 25 nationals in July, last week of June, first week of July. It was great, but now I'm kind of have to take a step back for a little bit and train a lot more. Just in this sport, it doesn't make any sense to peak every 2 to 3 months, right? Just because it's a lot of stress on the body. So now it's kind of time to wait my year and a half too until I can kind of be on the national
Oh,
stage
really?
again.
So you have to take that much break in between one competition and the other?
You can do more competitions, right? But if you think of it this way, if you compete every 4 months, right, you're pretty much having a peak that many times out of the year, right? So you're building from 75, 85, 95, and that means so many times out of the year, you're kind of pushing your body to its limit. So that means you have to be recovering, you have to be eating well, you have to be mobilizing. So like a lot of things have to go right. And in my experience, like you're only really meant to peak once or twice a year max. And it's really hard to put that on yourself mentally and physically.
So two competitions a year is still feasible.
That's for me, that's preferable. But when you get to the super like big international national stage where you're top of the top, they make you compete so much just because you need Roby points, which are the points that get you onto the Olympic teams or the world teams. So that's kind of like a catch 22 there.
I see. And did you watch the Olympics, the weightlifting that we have recently?
Yeah, I woke up early in the morning to watch and I had to, be a true fan.
It's incredible how the Chinese are so good on that.
Their style of training and programming starts from the time they're young children, whether their grandfathers, uncles did it. They purposely pick you out. Like it is state sponsored sport. It'd be like if the NFL was backed by the American government here and they gave him money, said we want athletes by the time they're in elementary ready to go.
Oh,
That'd be
really?
the equivalent of how they take the sport down.
That's why it's so big there.
Yep, pretty much everywhere but the United States, weightlifting is super big. It's just here it's taking a backseat to CrossFit and pretty much everything else.
And those guys are small, but they can lift so heavy. It's
Mm.
incredible. I've seen. I was watching um, some of the matches and everything, and it was incredible. The Chinese dominate.
It's usually between the Chinese, the Russians, but they got kicked out because of doping, and your Eastern European countries that do the best. They just understand training a lot better than we do. They've researched it. They have people that start from a lot of younger age too, and just genetically, they're a lot more gifted for it as well.
And the other thing that I noticed also is that the depth of the squat is incredible. They go so deep on that squat. It's incredible with that amount of weight. That's something that you really, as you said, you really got to be training since a young age to have that level of flexibility. Because, I mean, if you start late, you're not gonna go that deep.
Yeah, it's working on it every day, right? Little drills, little things where like it's just so habitual to you at that point where it's second nature.
Yeah, yeah. What about that Philippines a girl that won the first gold medal for her
Yeah.
country on weightlifting? It was incredible, man. I watched that lift many times just because her reaction was priceless.
You can definitely see everything that you pour out into training for those one lifts, and it's going to come out, and you could see just how hard she had worked, and that moment of like, man, it was all worth it. All the training, all the blood, all whatever I had gone to for this one moment, and it's really cool to see it.
It was great because actually after that I started following her on Instagram, and the conditions that she trained is like very poor, I mean, the gym and everything, and she made it. So it really shows that you don't need to have a bunch of fancy equipment to really improve on that sport.
Yeah, there's a African lifter who lifts outside, and I think he probably has nice equipment too, but I think he really likes using the older equipment. He's one of the top in the world, and you just see him throwing lifts out in the middle of a jungle with all these kids around him. And it's like, man, this guy's moving so much weight, and he doesn't even have a platform or proper anything, but he's just it feeds into that type of training, the mentality of you have to be that predator, that type of this is the weight, and I don't care what's on it that's going to move, whether there's 60 or 200 kilos on there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and the will and the drive is just it's just incredible. I was so happy for her. That was the lift of her life. I mean, that was incredible. How the U.S. did on the Olympics for the weightlifting?
We had Kate Nye. She was like the first one to, I think, get a silver or anything above a bronze for, I think, 20, 30 years. I'm not too sure on the statistic, but Kate Nye, she's been world champion the last year, and she's been pretty much dominating everything else. So she was supposed to win gold almost, but they kind of took a lift away from her. So she still got silver, which is really good because it's better than anyone that's done in the U.S. for a while. But besides that, I think we had one more medalist, and that was like a super heavyweight female. The reason we kind of struggle compared to the rest of the world is just our country doesn't dope. They're very strict on doping regulations, and the rest of the world is not everyone per se, but other federations, they kind of have state sponsored doping, so their athletes are going to be that much better.
Well,
It doesn't
but
matter how
but
hard
but
you
you
train.
still have to test on the Olympics, right?
Yeah, but there's at that point there's so many workarounds and so many different things. Like there's a whole political system within the sport, and that's why right now it's might be kicked out of the Olympics because they haven't cleaned it up. And there's just generations of different federations who have done the certain way of training for a while, and it's like, why are we going to change for this?
Oh,
So it's kind of might kill the sport, might not. We'll see in the next month or so.
oh, I didn't know about that. That's interesting. Uh,
Yeah.
so looks like there is a seminar coming up about Olympic weightlifting, right?
Yep, September 18th. My coach from Atlanta Performance, Robert Hall, he's coming down to Hidden to teach a seminar. If we get enough people, we'll do a 2-day seminar, but right now we're at a 1 day. He was a national champion back in like the early 2000s, been on a bunch of world teams, and he just understands the sport because he's been in it now for over 20 years, and it's great to be under him and learn from him.
Is this seminar more theoretical or going to be some practice too?
Oh, it's all hands on from beginner all the way to competitors. They don't need to be even like barbell training because it's whatever it is that we need to help you with, we're going to be there for it.
Interesting. So anyone can go.
It's open to even, like I said, we had a couple of trainers who don't really necessarily want to train that way, but they said, I want to know what's going on. So if I do have clients like that, I can at least guide them in the right direction or see what's going on.
Well, but
Just because
how do you
information,
do a hands-on when you have such a mixed audience? Like you have, for example, let's say you have people that are not professional but amateur weightlifters, and you have someone that has no idea. How do you equalize that?
so usually you can have them in lines, right? Where your beginners are on one line, intermediate, a little more advanced. And what you do is you go down the line. So, okay, take your lift, next person, take your lift, and then take your lift. And you're giving little feedback throughout each lift, right? You kind of limit it to a minute or 2 minutes so you can get through everyone. But it's just kind of organized chaos is what I call it because people are going to want your attention for everything. Like, hey, was this a good lift? Was that a good lift? And I was like, sure, but I'm not going to lie to you and tell you something that's not right.
So there will be no introduction theory to talk about the lifts. He's gonna demonstrate and things like that. Because I've never been on this seminar. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have not been on a weightlift seminar. So what is the format? Do you have like a structure for this seminar?
Usually at the beginning, we talk about the snatch and the clean and jerk or the different type of movements within Olympic lifting. And we'll usually take a raise of hands. What movement do you want to work on the most? Or depending on the crowd that we're going to have, right? What are we going to focus on the most? Whether it's pulling from the floor, starting from a high angle positioning, it really depends on who's there. And we just break down the lifts either from the floor or from a top positioning. It's very catered to whoever's in the seminar. So I guess that's the cool thing about it. There's not like a set A, B, C, D.
Mm.
It's okay. Let's see what's going on and see how we can fix your issue because everyone's at different points in their training. And that's kind of what I like about it. It's very too case by case.
Is that usually the normal type of seminar for weightlifting? I mean, I'm pretty sure you've been on many. Is that usually the format?
No, most of them are, this is how it's done. This is why we do this, which is fine. But I'm not really that type of person who likes to follow like a block or guidelines of what it is that you're doing because you don't really learn from that, at least for this type of training, because it's such a hands-on thing. Like you have to understand why this body part is doing this, why you have to do this, and how you have to do this. So it's kind of hard to just be like pull, turnover, catch, which in the simplest terms makes sense. But I've learned that when you can explain it to people in such a way where they're not just having main platforms, then it makes a little more sense to them and they're going to have more confidence because they have to have confidence in how it is that barbell has to move for the lifts to move efficiently.
In your opinion, what is the hardest part of the lift, considering that the bar is on the floor? Is taking out of the floor or is doing the final lift?
For snatch or for clean and jerk?
Clean and jerk.
The clean and jerk, the scariest or the worst part? I'm sorry.
The worst part. I mean, the most difficult part, right?
The most difficult part, I guess, is if you over pull the barbell on a clean and jerk, just because you can deadlift a lot more than you can clean. And if you're really nervous, you can over pull that weight. And now that weight's going to come crashing down on you a couple of feet, right? So you have to have that confidence. I'm going to pull this barbell hard off the floor, but not too hard. Because if not, there goes 200-300 pounds that are going to crash on me. And like, I'm either going to catch it and stand up with it, or I'm going to sit at the bottom, or it's going to miss. So that's probably, for me at least, one of the worst things that I
Oh, that's a
dislike. But
great point. I never thought about that. That's very interesting. So if you go too high, then it's gonna be coming back right on top of you, right?
yeah, what goes up must come down, and especially the speed of gravity, and then with the weight, it's just you want to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, that's why many times that's why those short guys they have such a big advantage because they are so close to the floor that they seeing a little movement they are already under the bar.
Yep. The shorter levers are easier to just move the weight with. Like we call it the fridge size. If you're about the size of a fridge, stocky legs, stocky arms, you're perfect for weightlifting. It just simple. It's kind of sad to say, but those are your best weightlifters for the most part. Because being tall is super hard because of mobility and strength and the amount how much further you have to pull the weight. But stocky and short is the best body
Yeah, on this
composition and body
and on
size.
this Olympics now, I saw that one huge guy, and he was tall. He broke the record. But
Lasha.
right, I can only imagine how hard for that guy is to coordinate everything because he is tall. At least he looks tall.
Yeah, I think he's like 6'4", 6'3", 6'4" to 6'3". But he's been killing it since like 2017. I don't think he's missed a lift on an international stage since 2018. That was one lift. And besides that, he's gone 6 for 6 at every world meet and has pretty much breaks his own records. He's a one in a generational athlete.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, because that guy with that size to put himself under the bar is hard. So that, as you said, that's the probably the hardest part. And do you feel that once you are able to be on that position, 50% of the lift is done, or more than 50?
For the clean and jerk, if standing up with it is honestly the easiest part if you time it right. The cruddy part is when you do the jerk, like if you had to exert a lot of energy standing up with the weight, now you're a little bit lightheaded on the jerk. So it's like, all right, gather your breath, open your chest. But if you hit it real nice and you stand up with the weight, it's kind of just staying tight and having confidence in it because it's super easy to get in your head because you'll stand up with it and you're looking around kind of dazed. And it's like, man, I'm about to throw this weight above my head. Yeah, I guess I am, or I'm about to pass out on the stage.
uh, I saw one. Well, probably I don't. I can't remember the name of this Chinese guy, but he did the clean. He jerk, and he was already standing, and then he stand just in one foot to readjust. That was so weird. I never seen something like that.
That's incredible strength. And I saw too. He was I think a 70. I can't even know his weight class, but he was a super small guy. But to be able to do that with 400 pounds, I think it was plus, it just shows the core strength, the amount of coordination that you have to have, and just confidence to be like, yeah, I'm going to
Wait,
put all this weight.
yeah, but why he did that? Was he just trying to show off, or just trying to rebalance?
Readjust because you have to stabilize the barbell and set it down once they do it. So probably for that, I can't remember the lift, but I think that's what it was. He was just trying to show that he had control of the weight.
Oh, otherwise he would not count.
That's what I think. I'd have to see it right now, but I think that's what it was, and probably a little bit of a flaunt to say that I'm this good at what I do. I'd say a little bit of both.
So the judge, they will evaluate not only the lift but the control, right?
Yeah, you have to hold it for like a 2 count at the top, and even when you let it go, you have to set it down. I actually got a lift taken away because I didn't set the barbell down. I kind of dropped it, and it's kind of like a judgment call. But if you get a mean enough jury, they'll take the lift away from you. That's what actually happened to Kate and I too. They took her lift away
Wait,
because
but
she didn't
so
drop it
wait,
properly.
so but everyone drops the weight. What are you talking about? You cannot drop.
Yeah. So they say there's a safety protocol, and it's kind of like a judgment call. When you hit the weight, you have to drop it like at eyesight or below. But a lot of people, they'll hit it and kind of drop it because I'm training, right? You're training so often, you hit, drop, hit, drop. You're not really thinking about it like that. So a lot of times you do it out of just habit. Sometimes you do it because you're just in the moment about it. But if you get a really stingy jury or top of the class, they'll call you on it every single time, or they kind of just want you to set it down and be super PG about it.
Is this more on the international level that they are more picky on this, or even national level? You see things like that.
It's happened to me on the national level a lot, actually. One thing or another, it happened a couple of times actually for me, but you kind of learn from it because you get called out on little things, and they say, well, you just never know who's going to be your judge or on the jury. They kind of hold you to that standard, but it sucks because it's not very consistent. So you'll have some sessions where they do and some where they don't.
So do you lose points, or you completely disqualify?
They don't count the lift, so even if you hit it, they'll just take it away from you. They'll say like it was a no lift.
Oh God, that's not fair.
Yeah, it hurts your ego a little bit too, but you're like you just have to brush it off. You're like, well, go out to the next one.
Yeah, it's just like a deadlift, right? I mean, when you do the deadlift, you cannot just let it go the bar. You have to drop more smoothly. Lower the bar.
Mhm.
Actually, not drop. You'd have to lower the bar. Now, when you
So I get why they do it.
yeah, now when you're
Go ahead.
doing weightlifting training, that's the only thing you do as far as training, or do you also incorporate or other type of exercise, for example, deadlift to strengthen your lower back or anything like that, or you just practice those lifts and that's it?
It depends if I'm in like competition training or out of competition training. During competition training, it's mostly like snatch, clean, snatch pulls, which is kind of like a deadlift with the snatch grip. But like with the, you're pretty much doing the whole lift, but instead of turning it over, you'll do snatch RDLs, clean RDLs, a lot of pulling off the floor, push press, overhead press, power jerk. So you're doing a lot of barbell work. If you're out of competition training, you're doing like functional bodybuilding, which is essentially like doing different type of movements that are going to help your imbalances or instabilities, kind of like doing kettlebell work, landmine work, or even bodybuilding a little bit with the cables, just to kind of work on engaging your lats or building up your back. So that's why it kind of depends on your where you are for your
What
training.
about squats? Do you do any squat at any point in time?
Oh yeah, I squat every day is a squat day for me, whether it's overhead squat, back squat, front squat. Yeah,
But
every day.
but you don't go heavy every day, do you?
No, it I'll build up like right now in my training, I'm building up to like heavy sets 2 by 2. So I'll go up to like 90, 92% every other week or just depending every 2 weeks. It really depends where we are in our training because sometimes it'll go up on back squat, sometimes it'll go to front squat, or we'll put it on like a overhead squat or a snatch balance. So like your percentages will move around the different lifts depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
And since the formal weightlifting is just one lift, you are not really worried about repetition, right? So when you do squat, you do like what, 2 reps? That's it?
No, like beginning of the cycle, there's usually like sets of tens, but for the most time, we're working in that 5 set range or the 5 rep range, maybe doubles, triples, and five. Anything more than that, you're kind of just out of training and you're just maybe trying to recover.
Mm.
Each coach is different, so it's not like I'm speaking for everyone, but usually like the coaches I've been with and what I've learned, when you're that high in volume, you're out of training, or maybe they want to work on something, but usually you want to keep it low because you want your legs really fresh and you want to be explosive with it.
Do you do any other type of exercise for explosion, or basically as again just weightlifting?
The explosion part of it, so you can do box jumps. There's different little routines and preps you can do before you start doing the lifts. Like I know a lot of people that use the glute bands, start jumping, kind of, I think squat jumps is what they call it, or start playing with the bands. It really just depends. Each person has their own way to kind of get themselves going.
Where do you see most of the injuries on weightlifting? Because a lot of people they are also very skeptical on doing weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting, just because they are afraid of getting injury or anything. I mean, is lack of good gear, like a good belt, or bad form? Usually
It,
what it is that you've seen over the years that is more common.
it's usually a combination of bad technique with however they're trying to train with the technique, right? So if they don't know how to move with the barbell, like you shouldn't be pushing heavy weight in the first place. But you have people who are ego lifting, or like, oh, I feel better. This guy's next to me doing heavyweight. I have to do heavyweight too.
Yeah.
So that's where the background of understanding the sport and the type of training into it. You have to think of it like I say, it's practice, right? You can't play a game every single day. You have to practice, practice, practice. And every once in a while, you have a scrimmage or a game preseason. And that's how training has to be. You can't be peaking all the time. And that's where I see people get hurt in CrossFit gyms, regular gyms, strength and conditioning gyms. It's them not understanding enough about how to train for that, a combination with their barbell skills as well.
Did you ever had any injury training or not really?
Yeah, I've had a bunch of little things, nothing major. Like I had a slight little tear in my shoulder last year and we had to work around that. I've strained my psoas. That was took like 4 months to recover from. Um, that one was probably the worst one that I went to because I didn't realize my psoas went all the way from like my legs up to my back and I couldn't get to my bottom position. They have to dig into like your pelvic bone, but you have little things that are going to happen, and people are usually quit after the first year because that's when your body starts kind of talking to you. It's like, hey, you're either going to be committed to this and recovery, do all the little things right, or you're going to have to get out because you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, yeah. And those little things that you had were because you didn't know better, or was overused because you were training too much, or it was just a freaking accident.
Some of them just over time, right? Like you're always going to have little things that nag you, and sometimes you don't know when it's your time. Other times, like I had a pre-existing injury. Like I know my psoas hurts because when I was younger, I messed up my left knee playing football. So it's a little bit weaker than my other one. And that kind of made it for my hip to be unstable in the way I walk and the way I kind of even power out of lifts. Like I know that much out of it. So I'm always trying to work on your little imbalances. That's kind of the name of the game, is work on stuff that you know is going to hinge your performance. Because if you don't, that's where you're going to get hurt sooner or later.
And last question for us to wrap up here. If if someone is trying to enter this world of Olympic weightlifting, how important it is for them to do a proper warm up? Because I've seen so many people that walk in the gym and go straight to lift weight without any warm up. Do you do a lot of warm up before start lifting?
Yeah, I used to take like 45 minutes to warm up, and I got in trouble for it. Like, dude, your warm up's a workout. And I was like, I have to feel sweaty. But like, you just killed yourself for your whole workout. I was like, yeah, but I feel good. Now I keep it to about like 10 to 20 minutes, depending if it's a snatch or clean and jerk or both. A lot of banded stuff, rolling out, mobilizing, just kind of feeling yourself out. And even when you're taking like lighter lifts at 65, 70, you're still warming up. You're not just strictly doing those lifts. You're still going to go see, hey, my wrist hurts a little bit, my back's still tight. Like, not until you get to your working percentages is when you actually like you're ready to go.
And right in the beginning, when you are starting warm up, do you do also some stretches, or stretches you do only do at the end?
No, I stretch before and after just because that's your body is everything, and it's going to talk to you if you don't do that like immediately, especially in the sport.
Interesting.
A lot of yoga. That's what I got into a lot when I first started. I go to hot yoga like at least twice a week, but I had to stop because I was losing too much weight. So now I incorporate it at least 2 or 3 days out of the week where that's all I do. I won't do any barbell training or strength training. Like I'll just mobilize, stretch, kind of feel my body out and see what's going on with it.
Awesome. All right, Yusuf, that was really a great episode. A lot of cool tips. Looking forward to see this seminar. When is it again? August what?
September
Oh,
18th at
September
Hidden Gym.
18 at Hidden Gym. All right, great. And the information to register is going to be on the website, I guess, right?
Uh,
Uh,
yep.
all right, thank you very much, Yusuf. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me today.
All right, thank you everyone for tuning in to Unleash Podcast, and see you again next time.